Hi everybody, welcome to the zero wave oscillator tutorial. Let's dive right into it, guys. So right when you click on the zero wave oscillator, this is what it's going to look like right out of the box. You're going to have these gray waves with supporting green and red waves. Now, what are we looking at here? So think of these as sort of momentum waves, right? When you see this kind of move up as a wave or bubble and then move down, it typically means you are going to be losing momentum, which is going to further be signified by these little dots that will basically signal when your wave either moves from up to down or down to up. Now, there's different colors to these dots as well. There's going to be a dark red, a light green, and a dark green. The light green cross is a bullish cross, but a weaker strength bullish cross. A dark green dot is a very, very high probability, higher strength bullish cross. And then, of course, it's going to be the exact same for red. A dark red dot is going to be a more um, high probability, loss of bullish momentum cross to the downside. And then a light red is going to be a somewhat lower probability, lower strength. I wouldn't say probability, right? Because that depends on more things, but it's going to be a cross to the downside, so a bearish cross, but a little bit less steam behind it, okay? Now, what is the green and red supporting wave here, guys? Now, this is a highly modified RSI calculation, okay? But think of it as the following. This zero line right here is basically the 50, okay? Now, for those of you that have ever used RSI before, you know that RSI above the 50, bullish. RSI below the 50, bearish. Keep it really simple. Obviously, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but that's sort of the very simplified way to use RSI, and it's reliable. When the secondary supporting cloud right here is green, that means that your RSI for the time frame in which you are looking at is either above the 50 or below the 50. So green cloud above the 50, red cloud below the 50, okay? So you can use these together and say, okay, let's take a look at this. We're starting to curl up here, RSI wave, is red, we're super bearish. We get a bullish cross, right, signifying the end of our zero wave to the downside. It starts to curl up, gets back above the zero line, and look what happens. Our cloud, our RSI secondary supporting cloud, I'll zoom in here, flips from red to green as well. So you're seeing the zero wave oscillator going from, bearish with confluence of the RSI supporting cloud being bearish to downtrend is over. We get our green dot. We're moving to the upside. And at the same time, you had the RSI supporting cloud flipping from red to green. So using that confluence together, you would have been able to nail a move like this because this happened. I'll draw a vertical line here. This happened right in this region. Either one of these candles, doesn't really matter. And look what's happened, since then. And we're still, cruising along here. We're basically just kind of bobbing up here in a nice uptrend. RSI cloud is still super, super bullish. We're looking at the daily time frame. But anyways, let's talk about one more super important feature to this. So right now we are looking at the daily time frame. Okay. So what we can do is we can actually pin this to any time frame that we want. So our chart is on the daily time frame. You go up here to primary time frame at the very top of your settings. And let's look at the 3-day, right? So we'll change it to 3-day. And now we could be looking at the daily candles because maybe we just like how the daily candles look, but we'd be looking at the zero wave oscillator on the 3-day time frame. Okay, on the 3-day time frame. So very, very useful multi-time frame analysis tool. And again, you can look at things like, oh, there's a bullish divergence similar to RSI where the zero wave printed, a higher low here and is starting to move in an uptrend while price printed a lower low, right? So works kind of similar to normal RSI or stochastic in that fashion. But yeah, again, you can look at this on any time frame. So we're on the daily time frame. We could move this over to weekly, right? We could look at the 2-day candles with the weekly zero wave right here. Or we could move this down and look at the 12-hour while we're looking at the 2-day candles, right? There's any combination in which we can look at, right? So it's infinitely customizable. Um, but now we're going to talk about one feature that is incredibly important to understand, which is not just the multi-time frame analysis, but it's the multi-time frame dual time frame analysis. So right now we are looking at the candle, daily candles. Let's actually just open up our settings here. You can either do it by double clicking or just, going up here where you'll see it. And then you click up here in this blank spot and it'll just take you right back to your default time frame. Okay, whichever time frame you're looking at. Now let's get into the dual time frame components of this. So looking over here, you have your primary time frame, which is just set to default. Secondary wave settings. Let's click show secondary oscillator and then show secondary signals. And we have this on the weekly time frame right now. Okay. So what we're looking at right here is we are looking at our daily time frame primary zero wave oscillator, which is the gray waves with the dots, and then of course the red and green supporting RSI cloud. But on top of that, we now have a weekly time frame zero wave oscillator cloud, a second oscillator cloud. Okay. So what we're looking at right here, what we're able to identify is we're able to look at our daily trend, which is the gray, right? Which is the gray. And we're also able to overlay our weekly higher time frame trend over our daily trend. So this is such important information because you're able to say, okay, maybe I'm expecting a daily time frame, correction, but it's inside of a higher time frame, bullish or, bearish trend or something like that. Okay. And you can do this for any time frame. We just did the weekly. I could set this to, the 3-day. I could set it to the 4-hour. It doesn't matter what it is, right? So right now we're looking at the daily time frame, which is our primary gray wave with a supporting blue 3-day one. And we could also fix our primary wave to daily. And then I can go down to, the 12-hour or something like that. So I'm looking at 12-hour candles with a daily time frame primary zero wave and then a secondary 3-day time frame zero wave. And if you forget what they are, we've got little banners right here to remind you what they are. Okay. So this is really cool to use in Confluence where you can say, okay, look at now our daily time frame is trending up. You can see here, I'll zoom in so you can actually see it just in case it's small on your end. You can see daily time frame zero wave gets above the zero line, and then the supporting RSI wave goes from red to green. So daily time frame begins to uptrend. And of course, you know that higher time frames take longer to move. So you can say, okay, well, right here is when the daily time frame trends up, but I want to make sure that it's supported by a higher time frame move. Well, look at this. Now your 3-day is starting to curl up. It's just lagging your daily, of course, right? And there's plenty of other ways to use it where, for example, we could be looking here and saying, "Oh wow, look at like our daily wave, got below the zero line. That's a nice correction." But our 3-day is still so far above the zero line, we're not even close to a high time frame shift of trend, right? So this is a dip to buy. And one of my favorite combinations, I use this on so many different time frames, is I love looking at like the weekly time frame, and I'll just put this on the chart. So I'll look at, maybe like the daily or the 2-day, but I love the weekly time frame because I'm a swing trader. And I try not to miss the forest through the trees. I try not to miss the bigger picture. So, I can say to myself, looking at this right here, let's actually look at like the 2-day and the weekly. I can look at this and I can go, okay, we literally just started a new weekly trend. Look at how this is curling up. The weekly time frame, it's time to go risk off when you're seeing the weekly time frame, printing bearish dots, right? Like look at these. The weekly time frame crosses happen up here, right? This was kind of an intermediary, top. We did have a nice correction there, maybe 20%. But this is when you really begin to see, the winds shift is when you get these weekly crosses that happen up here. So we are nowhere near looking at the current weekly trend on the zero wave. We're nowhere near. We're nowhere near it. Right. So looking at something like this, you had, blue dot down here, which is your, bullish weekly time frame on the zero wave. And you had your daily, obviously already very bullish up in here. but we were catching up on the weekly time frame this whole time. So the real fun begins when the weekly flips the zero line. The higher time frame is obviously more important than the lower time frame. So we are, looking at this right here going, okay, daily time frame, oops, daily time frame correction happens right here. Obviously, we get that, bearish cross right there on the daily time frame. Okay, so daily time frame zero wave oscillator down. RSI still looks pretty good, kind of hanging at least above the 50, right around the 50. But we can see very clearly right here that our weekly time frame is really just starting to uptrend. So we're going to be looking to buy that dip on the daily time frame to capitalize on this weekly time frame, ultimately catching up and beginning a brand new trend. So hopefully that explains how to use the zero wave. I'll post some more videos later, but it's a really cool and useful tool which you can use on any time frame. We can go down to the the minutes. We can go weekly, monthly, doesn't matter. You can use it at any time frame, but it's a really cool way to not only look at where you are in your current trend. Are we trending up? Are we trending down? What's the momentum looking like? But also overlay multiple time frames, dual time frames, and say, okay, maybe this is a local pullback, but it's within a higher time frame uptrend, or vice versa, right? So thanks for tuning in, guys. Enjoy.